Nxt In.
All right. Hi, I'm Wes with Nxt In, and I'm on today with Johny Wudel, VP of Product at Job Nimbus. Johny, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Absolutely. Man, I would love to just kind of get a brief background of what you do there at Job Nimbus, and yeah, we'll just go from there.
Yeah, great. So at Job Nimbus, my role is VP of Product, and we are a tech startup in growth stage, and we solve problems, build software for contractors, home contractors. So like roofing is about 50% of our customer base, along with a lot of other contractors. And it's CRM, help them manage their contacts and their leads and their customers, and project management all the way through like billing and payments.
Nice. Very cool. Is that so is it kind of similar? Are you familiar with Built Technologies here in Nashville?
No.
No worries. I
think
think it's a similar product to Built. They help GCs essentially manage their book, basically.
Yeah. So the difference probably is we're not as focused on the general contractors. We're more about this vertical specific. So roofers, people that do like windows and siding, gutters, fencing companies.
Okay. Very cool. So people that have a niche business.
Yeah. Solar's another one.
Awesome, man. And I think if I remember right, you started your role there about a year ago. What attracted you to Job Nimbus?
Yeah. So yeah, I've been here, just hit your anniversary this week, actually. So I love the small, medium business space, like creating software solutions for small, medium business. You know, we refer to them as SMBs. I come from a family of dad that was an entrepreneur and had small businesses. And I mean, all of us have an aunt and uncle, brother, sister, best friend, whatever, who owns a small business. And seeing the impact that we can have on their lives means a lot to me. Like when I think of growing up, if my dad could save time, that meant he was spending time with us. If he made more money, that meant we were going on vacation as a family, or it was directly impacting my family. And we see the same thing with our customers, that when we can help them grow their business, it is meaningful to them creating more jobs or, to helping impact their family.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I can definitely, that resonates with me. So my dad owns a local insurance agency, and that's how he provided for us my whole life. In fact, that's how I got into technical recruiting, which I know sounds weird, but I left the Army as a sniper, had no marketable skills other than like going into law enforcement, didn't want to do that. And my dad said, hey, I'll teach you how to talk to people, and then you can go do whatever. And yeah, so I love small business owners. I think they take a lot of risk, and they don't. Yeah, it's a high risk world to be a small business owner.
Yeah, and it's not risk that is just at the beginning, and then you get like past a certain point. It's usually like this. Like it's all like the market dynamics shift, and all of a sudden what was a great business for them, they're now like really struggling, and all the risk comes back, and then they fight through it, and then they're back to good times, and it's a battle.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's awesome. So what if you don't mind me asking, what business did your dad run growing up?
So he had some restaurants at one point, and then he owned one of the restaurants and developed an ice cream that was sweetened with pure fructose instead of table sugar fructose. And then he took that uniqueness and created frozen yogurt based off of that ice cream recipe, and then left the restaurant businesses and just focused on the frozen yogurt. And he still has the business today. My brother runs it with him. They manufacture frozen yogurt mixes and ship them all over the world.
Oh, that's awesome. So definitely you just kind of like one-upped me. Yeah, my dad's business did not take off in that way. So that's incredible, man. Wow. So and before that you've been a professor, correct, at BYU?
Yeah, so that actually adjunct. So that's been going on for the last 3 years, in addition to my full-time job. The last 7 years, I've been in tech startups. So before this, I was at a company called Weave, who did software in the like healthcare space. But yeah, I've been teaching at Brigham Young University in the MBA program, and I teach a product strategy class. And that teaching has been one of my bucket lists, teaching at a college. And the opportunity popped up 3 years ago, and I was like, man, this isn't the best timing. Like things were going really hard and fast at Weave, and we were trying to move towards an IPO, but I felt like, how often do these opportunities come around? And so I jumped on it, and I've loved it.
Yeah, and is that still the present day, or have you kind of
I still
faded
teach.
off? Okay.
Yeah, I just teach one semester. So I'm not constantly teaching, but yeah, I still do it. I mean, every year they basically like decide again if they're going to have me back. So I'll know here in a few weeks. But as far as I know, I'm teaching again.
That's awesome, man. I think that if I were in an MBA program, wanting to get into product management, of course, taught by someone who's actively in the industry at the VP level, would be very valuable. So I think that's great.
The way I do it is it's all case studies. So from business, I went to business school and it was all case based. And so I do the same thing. So we take like case studies, basically stories of a company situation, and the class all contributes and talks and discusses and solves the problems and debates each other. And that's how I teach the product concepts. I just find it's way more effective because they can go read books. Like anybody can go read books and go consume all the, kind of A's and B's and C's of it. But the strategy of it comes from discussing and challenging and thinking. So that's how I've done it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is the value of higher education, right? I think we may have kind of gotten away from that in society, but college literally means reading together, right? So you went to a small business school, correct?
Yeah, a little kind of out of the way podunk school.
Little podunk school. No, I'm just kidding. You graduated the Harvard MBA program. I mean, that's pretty prestigious. But I noticed that it wasn't BA MBA. It was BA several years later MBA. So what provoked you to go back and get your master's?
Yeah, so with MBAs, that's really typical. Like they like you to have work experience, especially Harvard, because it's case based. Because if you don't have experience, it's a lot harder to contribute and provide insights. So I always knew when I was an undergrad that I wanted to get an MBA. That was always the plan. To the extent that my senior year of undergrad, I took the GMAT, knowing that I was going to apply probably 4 years down the road, 3-4 years down the road for an MBA.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, man, when you look back, I mean, you've been in product for a while now. What do you look back on at this stage of your career in terms of product development and say, that's the one I'm most proud of? Like, boom, that one.
Wow.
Easy question.
Yeah. So, I mean, the experience, obviously I'm proud of what we're doing right now, right? Like, I got to be fair to that. But the experience that we've, I just feel like we built such an elegant product. It's like phone systems and texting with a bunch of other like softwares wrapped around it for healthcare doctors, dentists, vets. And our retention rate for small, medium business was 94% a year, which is unheard of. So typical retention in a small, medium business space is like 70% a year. So 30% of your customers every year churn out because they go out of business. They're just switching solutions all the time, whatever. And we were at 94 retention because the product was intuitive, easy to use, created tons of value. And we launched things connected to the texting, like payments, for example, and scheduling, appointment scheduling, things that just made it indispensable. So that kind of package of experiences, and I brought the product strategy to the company. Like they were doing a bunch of awesome stuff, but I brought it together in a vision and strategy that we could focus on. And that's probably the highlight that I'm most proud of in my career so far.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Weave was kind of SaaS solutions for like local medical practices kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. The medical industry is still surprisingly very analog.
Oh yeah. Well, to the extent that we had to build a fax because they actually do a ton of faxing with insurance companies. Yes. So we have all this communication happening through like modern technology, and then they were faxing, and we're like, why are you faxing? And they're like, well, that's what insurance companies do. That's considered HIPAA compliant. Like you can't send an email through HIPAA compliance, but you can send a fax, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, so anybody can walk by and take off the
totally machine. Anybody. So we built an eFax solution, and I mean, it was the joke of all the dev and product teams. It's like, here we are using the most modern like coding language and technology, and we're building eFax.
That's awesome. Yeah. Did you call them on a rotary phone as well?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And
No,
we
man,
had one of the like little like actually I don't even think we spurred this. We just had a customer that adopted our eFax and sent us a video where they took their fax machine out in like a dirt field and they shot out with shotguns and blew it up and sent that to us.
that is awesome. Dude, that's great. Yeah, we have several clients here at our agency that are in that health tech and health software space, and the thing I hear most constantly from them is like, even in 2022, there's still a ton to be done in the healthcare industry in terms of technology and modernization. So it sounds like you really seize that opportunity at Weave. So it also sounds like at Job Nimbus, you're solving a similar issue in terms of retaining those small business clients, right? Would that be?
Yeah. And as you're saying, how healthcare is kind of antiquated. I mean, construction is the same thing, right? Like maybe even worse. And that's part of what I love about these vertical spaces is to bring people out of the dark ages and help them adopt technology that is life-changing, like literally life-changing. It's fun. It's hard because like people, for them to change their processes is really hard and painful for them just because they have to do things differently. But those that like have the vision for it and grab on and go, it's incredible to see the impact it has on them and their business.
Yeah, listen, man, I'm hearing you talk about Job Nimbus and how they're kind of, it's hard to make small business owners modernize. And you mentioned roofers and things like that. Man, I live out here in rural Tennessee. I'm 10 minutes from the Jack Daniel's whiskey distillery, and we had to have our septic system worked on about 3 weeks ago. And so the bill was $2,000, and the guy's sitting out here in my yard. He's done. And I said, okay. I said, are you just going to email me an invoice? Or he goes, no, man. He said, you just got some cash? That'd be great. Just like that. Didn't miss a beat. I'm going to be honest. I don't usually keep $2,000 in cash on me. I'll go to the bank, I guess. And he goes, yep, that's fine. Stay here in my driveway. I drove to the bank and pulled out the money and paid him. So yeah, and I'm thinking like, crazy. He's one of like 3 people in our county that even do that, what he came out here to do. And I'm like, I mean, the man's not paying taxes. There's no way.
Yeah.
No way.
No, I'm surprised he didn't ask if you could like trade a car or pay him in like turnips or something.
Yeah, right. I joke, but actually I do genuinely love it around here. But it is, man, my wife's cousin. Now he's not your typical roofing operation owner. He was an accountant at Deloitte and bought a roofing operation, but he's talked about that, like how the business was ran before he took it over versus how it's ran now. He owns that's in Augusta, Georgia. I actually should probably tell him about you guys. He owns a roofing operation. He has 6 or 7 guys, and they go about a 3-hour radius from Augusta. So no,
yeah, we're seeing more of that in a space where people that have a business background aren't in the trade, but they see an opportunity to come bring excellent customer service and operations, and they get find the people who have the expertise, and we love those kind of people because they're the ones that get it. They're the ones that adopt our software and just crush it. Yeah,
absolutely. And he went to UGA, graduated with a degree in finance, and over Christmas we were talking, and I said, when did you get into roofing? He goes, I'm not into roofing. He said, I own a roofing business.
Yeah.
Like, all right, I get it. Cool. Man, that's awesome. So, when you look back over your career, you've been at the VP level, since 2017, somewhere in there, right? And then before that, I think a director. What do you attribute to your career growth, just in general?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think some of the attributes, I'll maybe talk about that first, like attributes that either like I've recognized myself that benefited me or I've tried to develop, and the attributes that I think, I'll identify in people that I see on a fast trajectory. So one is being self-driven, of like really wanting to learn grow, constantly challenge yourself, not be complacent kind of with where you're at. Another one is having a bias for action. Like if somebody's not doing something, do it. If there's something that's complex and is difficult for people to figure out, like lean into it and go work the problem. I also think that, kind of use the buzzword of networking, like getting to know people. Like, for example, I think of when I got the opportunity at Weave, I had met with someone who was a consultant for customer success. And then he talked to the guys at Weave and referred me. And it was because I'm out there talking to people. I'm out there meeting people and, asking, picking their brain. Like, it's not like I'm meeting them trying to say, hey, learn about me. That person in particular, I was just like soaking in from him, asking him questions, trying to learn from him. And then he remembered that enough to say, hey, this guy is someone you should look at. So those are a couple of ideas.
Yeah, I like that. So more of like when you say bias towards action, you mean kind of like just do something instead of just kind of waiting on everything to align and be perfect. I mean, would that be?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, picture you're in a meeting and they're talking about some problem at the company or whatever, and everyone's kind of sitting back thinking, well, that's not my problem. Like, hopefully Geoff steps up, or hopefully Susie steps up. Like, the action should be, no, like, it doesn't matter if it's in my department or not. Like, I'll raise my hand and I'll go help solve the problem. Even if I don't totally understand, like, I'll go figure it out. Like, right. Jump into the void.
Nice, man. That's all. So with that, talking about, if I don't know, I'll go figure it out. One of the things I hear a lot from people in product is what attracted them to product was having a problem to solve. So whether it's for an internal client or an external client, what attracted you to product? You made a good career out of it.
Yeah. So once I got into the official capacity of product, and I'll kind of mention exactly how that happened, because I think it hits on your point. I looked back at my career and looked at different times when I was the happiest or thriving. And all of those moments were moments where there was aspects of product development. It maybe wasn't the official title, but it was aspects of doing the work, which you're absolutely right. It's solving problems. And the way that I got into the official capacity is I was running a customer success team at a tech SaaS company. And I was so frustrated because we were churning out customers. My team was trying to save them. And the product team, we were dependent on them to build solutions. And, there was kind of some friction there. And then my boss moved over to run product, and he said, hey, I know you're super frustrated with what's been going on in product. Come over and solve the problems. And I was like, yes, 100%. Let's go up funnel. Let's go upstream and go solve the problems and not have to be churning wheels trying to save customers by giving them discounts or, doing other kind of unnatural things. And so that solving of problems, because, the thing that I've learned about customers is they're not great at telling you the solution. There's the apocryphal quote that Henry Ford said, if you asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. There's actually no evidence he said that, but the point is still really valid and strong. Right. And maybe they said it. We could pretend they said it, but you could see that people would have said that, but they're really good at showing you their pain. Often you have to just watch for it. They may not explicitly tell you. Other times they can describe it to you, but they're really good at people will find workarounds to things. They'll find you can identify their problem and their pain. And then from the product standpoint, our job is then to go figure out what is the most elegant solution to solve that pain.
Yeah, that's awesome. I heard, and I was actually trying to find this when you made the quote that may or may not be Henry Ford, but yeah, I'm not going to find it right now. I don't guess. Yeah, Theodore Levitt. People do not want a 1/4-inch drill; they want a 1/4-inch hole.
Yeah. There's actually a framework that we use in product called Jobs to be Done. Have you ever heard of that framework?
I have not. So
basically, the idea is whenever we use a product, we're hiring it to do a job for us. So think of I recently been renovating a house, and we needed someone to come paint our house. So I hire a painter to come do the job to paint my house. Well, likewise, if you need to put a picture on the wall, you get a drill and you hire that drill, so to speak, to create the hole, to put in the, drywall anchor to hang your picture.
Yeah.
And with software, same thing. Like you need to send a digital payment request. Well, you hire the software to do a job for you to get money collected faster and easier. And so that jobs to be done framework is a different spin on pain points. And it allows us, like from a product manager perspective, to frame up the problems that we're going to solve.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like thinking about, that's like a framework to think about my whole life, man. Like I've hired this coffee mug to deliver coffee to my mouth.
Yeah. So then you think about, okay, how do I help this coffee mug? How do I get the right coffee mug to do it the best way possible? Do I need it to be bigger to hold more coffee, or less because I don't want to have like such a buzz? I want to have less coffee, or it's at night. I don't want to drink as much, or, you start to optimize once you understand the job to be done.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. No, this mug was hired from shameless plug, the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, there you go.
One of the coolest music venues in the world. So if you ever come to Nashville, man, I do like thinking about things that way. Let me ask you this: if Johnny, if you could talk to someone in product who was, let's say, 8 or 9 years behind you in their career development, and they're looking to become director of product, or maybe they just got a director and they want to become a VP of product, what advice would you give that person? I know that's incredibly generic, but that's intentional. What advice would you give that person?
Yeah, so I actually get to have this conversation a lot, like both with my own team and people on my team, as well as the students I teach. So when I think of like a product leader, so say a director or VP of product, there's kind of 4 main areas that I think about. One, like they need to know the skill of product. So hone that craft, study the craft, read about it, like learn about it, do it. So there's the craft. 2 is the operations and process. So there's like, how are you going to track data of your product usage? What tool are you going to use? How are you going to set up that tool properly? And all the processes and operations that happen within a product team. Getting feedback and all the processes for that, all those things. The third one is coaching and mentoring. So you're going to have people reporting to you, what are you like as a coach, and how do you help support them and help them grow in their careers? And you can develop that muscle without actually having any direct reports. You can go find people that are maybe, younger in their career and just go like help mentor them and help coach them at your company or outside your company, and develop that muscle. And then the fourth one is strategy, product strategy, which I find to be the hardest. Like, ironically, I teach a class around that, but I find it the hardest to develop in people, because some people just either they get it or they don't. You can read books, but like that doesn't really that can help expand your thinking, but it doesn't like truly develop the muscle. So I don't know. That one's the one I'm still like working on, and how I help people level up around product strategy.
Yeah. So circling back to what you said a couple of sentences ago, when you think about, obviously you have a passion for teaching, right? You're an adjunct professor. You're clearly probably mentoring people at Job Nimbus. What is your approach to like coaching and mentorship, like on your current team, or just kind of in general?
Yeah. So frequent communication. So I do weekly one-on-ones, a lot of feedback, constructive, positive feedback, constructive feedback. And that's what I'm constantly trying to work on. Like a lot of what I've also done, kind of earlier question of like, how have I developed myself? I've tried to be very self-aware, like take a lot of the assessments, get a lot of 360 feedback from people. Like I've really tried to understand my strengths and weaknesses. And part of that is like, I believe often we only focus on the weaknesses and let's go fix those. But if you know your strengths and lean into those, you can be way more powerful than even like, incrementally changing your weaknesses. But anyway, kind of a tangent. One of my weaknesses is having hard conversations and being direct. And so I've like really worked at that from a coaching perspective to try to give direct feedback that's helpful, right? Like something they can take, and people want it. Like they're starving for it. Because like they want to know where they stand. They don't want to sit in ambiguity and not know if they're doing a good job or not. So frequency, consistency, giving a lot of feedback. And then like often it's all about questions. Like they have the answers usually, it's just about asking the right questions and doing it in different ways that can get them to think differently and help them like solve the problem they're dealing with, or help them figure out where they should be focusing. So those are some of the tactics I use.
Yeah, man, I'd love to pick your brain about how you've gotten better at having hard conversations, because in this role here at Next Level, I do a lot of our executive recruiting. And for example, we've been on a CTO search, and in that search, about everybody that we've moved to the next stage has been incredible. Like, these guys are senior vice presidents of engineering and at big companies. And then the client decides not to move forward with them, and now I have to tell them that. And it's like, I don't want to tell you this.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you this, right? And so, man, that's something. Yeah, I really love what I do. If you ask me what I hate the most, it is rejecting people that are good candidates. They're just not who we decided to move forward with. I hate it.
Yeah, it's not fun. I mean, it's like a version of firing someone, right? A little different, but
yeah.
One of the things I've done, which can be kind of weird, but role plays, like, that's helped me a lot. And that's actually one of the things I use in my classes too. I feel like one of the best ways to work through hard conversations is preparation and role plays. And it's not going to be a perfect proxy, but it just allows you to like get through some scenarios and get a level of comfort with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've been doing it for a while now, and it still is very uncomfortable. And two, you want to be direct with people, but man, people already hear it in your voice when you're like, "Hey, Geoff, how are you, man? Yeah, I just wanted to call and let you know," and they instantly know where this is going. And I honestly wish there was a way around that, because if I could say what I say at the end, at the beginning, in a way that was natural, those conversations would go a lot better, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So when you're not focused on product leadership and teaching, what are you into? I mean, you're wearing, we talked about before we started rolling, but you're wearing an Arc'teryx shirt. Shameless plug. I'd love for them to randomly hear this and sponsor this and maybe send me some gear. But yeah, what are you into, man? I'm making the assumption that you're into the outdoors, but that's just an assumption.
Yeah, I am. So I do a lot of running and biking, trail running, mountain biking, also road biking, road running, triathlon. But if I could flip my camera around, you'd see I live basically in the mountains. Like, so I'm outside Salt Lake, and the whole kind of Salt Lake corridor is right along a mountain range. And so from my house, I can mountain bike. I'm like a mile into trails that are just gorgeous, and they're steep and fun. And it's the Rockies, like the mountains. So it's, I love that. I have 4 kids from 17 down to 8 years old. So they take focus and a lot of time and energy. And we like to backpack together. And every year we have a tradition where we go out into the mountains and we backpack and get away from everything, get away from phones and, drama. So I also like to boat. Like, I went this morning with a friend early morning before work, and we went wakeboarding and surfing behind his boat. So those are some of the things.
That's all. Did you say before work?
Yeah.
That is an awesome way to start a day.
It was awesome. Yeah. Before sunrise and out on the lake.
Dude, that's incredible. Talking about backpacking, I literally have a 70 liter pack here, and I was actually just getting my gear ready. Me and a old Army buddy are doing the Smoky Mountain National Park. It's about 80.
Oh, cool.
So start to finish, you're talking about going, if you go to All Trails, which I'm sure you're familiar with, but or Onyx, start at Fontana Dam and go past Davenport Station, 78.8 miles, and it gets you, if you're familiar with the Appalachian Trail at all, kind of the heart of the AT is the Smokies. And, aside from going out to Utah or Colorado, like, it's the best thing we got, man.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do that in October. And the plan is to do it in 4 or 5 days. Now, I'm getting pushback because my buddy's like, yeah, that sucks the joy right out of it.
Yeah, pushing hard.
But yeah, man, what's the coolest place you live in a cool place. What's your favorite place to backpack?
Yeah, so last summer I went with some buddies. It was actually in between jobs. Before I started Job Nimbus, I had a week off, and we went to the Tetons, to Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. It's by outside Jackson Hole, and we did a big loop around. There's like two big Teton mountains. We went back around behind them, and once you get back behind, it's called Hurricane Pass, and there's a little valley there. It's probably one of the prettiest places I've ever been. There's like multiple waterfalls coming off of the Tetons that then cascade into this valley, and the rocks are just covered in moss, and there's flowers everywhere. And I mean, it was beautiful.
That's awesome, man. What so when you do a multi-day trip like that, what's your go-to pack?
Which backpack I use?
Yeah.
I have a Granite. What's that brand? I think is it just Granite. It's like a 65 liter.
65 liter. Okay.
Granite gear.
Okay, nice. So 65. So I'm in the process right now. So the last big one I went on, I had the 70 liter, and I'm 6'1", 220, man, and I like to eat, and so it catches up with me on the trails because I show up with like a 50-pound pack.
Yeah.
What are you maxing out that 65 liter, or are you one of those guys who trying to go ultra light, like you got the lightest tent, you got the lightest? Is that you?
No, I'm not like ultra light, but I'm definitely not the 50-pounder. I'm probably somewhere in between.
I don't recommend it.
No, yeah. I've been researching recently though, like some of the tactics. Like I stopped using bags, no bag for my sleeping bag, no bag for my tent. I break the tent up, and I'm sure you know all of this, but I realized this in the last year that if I get better distribution of weight, it actually feels so much better, even though the weight may not be that different.
Yeah.
That different. So like getting the tent out of the bag and distributing it better helped a ton.
Yeah, I'll give you this is very humbling right here, but I'll give you a humiliating story. So my wife's oldest cousin is a smoke jumper. You familiar with these guys?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm about 8 years older than him. And when I was a sniper in the Army, he is right when my wife and I got married. I just got back from Iraq, and he thought that he was a kid at the time, and he thought that was incredibly cool. And so it set a relationship on this path where he really thought, and I'm making an emphasis because I know guys that have really done stuff. I didn't do anything, man. He thought though that like I was really something, okay? And at the time that he first met me, I was in great shape. I was on a sniper team out of 3rd Infantry Division, and just fresh off my second deployment. And long story short, we followed a touch. Years go by, and when I got back into backpacking, it was about 2.5, 3 years ago. He calls me. He goes, "Hey, fire season's over. I'm going to be home for the next couple months." He said, "I've mapped out 80 mile or 60 something miles in North Georgia." He said, "You want to come down and do it on a 4-day weekend?" And I'm thinking, I haven't had a pack on my back at this time since I left the military. But when I was there, I mean, when I had my full kit on, I would weigh in. I was weighing about 185 at the time, and with the full kit, rifle, and everything, I'd weigh in at about 315, and I could run.
Gosh,
I could run, man. Like I was like, yeah. And so knowing that, like, because we started on that footing, he kind of looks up to me in a pure fit of pride and insanity. I did absolutely zero preparation. Grabbed a pack. I hadn't had a pack since I left the military. Grabbed a Osprey pack. Got the stuff I needed. I showed up to meet him, and he's eager, man. He's ready. Like, we're doing this together. He's excited. We get there. It's nighttime. In my head, I'm now in my 30s. I got a wife and 3 kids. I'm like, we're clearly going to camp here, wake up in the morning, have a nice hike after breakfast. It'd be great. I get out of the truck, and he goes, "Dude, you ready?" He's like, he's got his headlamp on. He goes, "We could get 13 miles right now and then bed down for the night." And so the internal dialogue is like, okay, I'm not going to tell him I don't want to do that because he'll judge me. So I go, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Let me grab mine right now. And middle of the night, we start this. I think we stepped off at like 10. We put down 13 miles. and it's up one, down one. And we get ready to set the tent up, and I thought, there's no way I'm keeping up with this kid. He wanted to put down 25 miles in 5 hours after 5 hours of sleep. And so we do 5 hours of sleep. We wake up and we get about 12 miles in. And I just tell him, like, look, man, I am not that guy anymore. I hate to tell you this, but I'd really like to take these miles down and enjoy this trip more.
That is so great.
He has not let me live it down since. Yeah.
Hey, at least you were direct with him. You had to level.
It took me laying in my tent, realizing how miserable it was going to be to try to put down 23 miles every day for the next 3 days. I was just like, there's no way. This isn't. We're not doing this. So
yeah, this isn't happening. Oh, that's
but
great.
It did set me off. So that was when I picked it back up. And now he actually may join us here in October, so we're going to do the Smokies. I feel like I could, but at that time, it was a lot of stupidity to not get ready for it.
Yeah.
So what's your normal pack weight that you step off with? Like, where do you try to stay around?
I don't do that much backpacking, probably not as much as you. I'm like, when I was in the Tetons, it was probably in the low 40s.
Yeah, that's solid, man. Especially if you're in a mountainous environment.
Yeah,
it's really solid. So, dude, going back really quick, you talked about you mountain bike, but you also road bike.
Yeah.
What are you on for the road bike?
I read a Fuji.
Okay, very nice, man. I had a Specialized. I piled into the pavement last year, so now there's a metal plate.
Oh, right geez.
Yeah.
Yeah, I rode a Specialized before the Fuji, I mountain bike now more than I do road bike. I used to do more triathlons and road bike more, but I've kind of switched a little bit.
Yeah, mountain bike definitely. I've never done any mountain biking. It definitely seems like a lot of. It seems very technical in nature.
It just depends on the trails you're on. It can be very technical, but yeah, it just depends the trails.
So are you hitting up highly technical trails, or you just kind of want to get in the woods on something smooth?
Most of the stuff that I'm doing near my house isn't super technical. It's a lot of climbing, but not super technical. There is stuff like southern Utah, I don't know if Moab, if you've heard of Moab. There's really technical stuff there that I've done. I'm not the best technically because I didn't grow up doing it. I started doing it really in the last probably 8 years. And it's one of those things, it's a lot harder to learn as an adult, like everything is, right? Like that muscle memory is just different. But like my son, he started mountain biking probably, even when he was 12, and he was technically better than me in a year. He's just, he's just picking it up so fast. But the stuff that's steep uphill, you earn it, and then you get a flowy downhill. And there's some really nice flow where, you just kind of bank turns and you're just cruising. That stuff's fun.
Yeah, dude, that is fun. I'd like to get into mountain biking, but I think if I pick up another hobby, my wife might murder me. My kids, my oldest is 6, and then from there it goes 3-1. So I can't.
Yeah, the magic is as they get older, the magic is you've got to get them into your hobbies. So last year my son was on the high school mountain bike team, and we biked, and I was one of the ride leaders. So we were together riding, right? And so
that's cool.
Then it's not about to my wife, I'm not leaving to go do my hobby. I'm leaving. It's for our son, really.
That's right. I tell everybody I like to lift weights, man, and my goal in lifting is to stay healthy enough that when my boy's old enough to start, he can be out here with me.
Yeah,
that's probably pretty rewarding doing that with your son. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's also super frustrating because kids are kids, and it's hard not to get on them and push them harder. Gotta be patient.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you said you have 4 between 18 and what's the end of the age there?
17 is the oldest and 8 is the youngest.
17 and 8. That's a spread. So my youngest sister is 10 years younger than me. So that's about on track with that. We joke. So when I got married, my little sister was 11 years old. And we look back on those pictures. It's hilarious, man.
Oh,
She's blonde-headed, And at that time, it's when Taylor Swift was still country. And she told the hairdresser that she wanted to look like Taylor Swift. And so the hairdresser like styled her hair, and my little sister walked around their wedding for 3 hours like this, so nobody would touch her. She didn't want to disturb the hair. So, and now she's 22 and she's teaching in city schools here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it is. Well, man, what else? In terms of reading, are you reading anything good? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So right now, so I just finished one called Who, which from a recruiting standpoint, it's all about like method to hiring people.
I haven't.
So that was a good one. Another one. So I just finished that, and then another one that I'm sure you've probably read and would love your take on: Extreme Ownership. A couple of Navy SEALs wrote it.
Jocko, is that Jocko Willink's book?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm familiar with
Leif
that.
and Jocko.
Yeah. I think it's largely, if I remember right, it's been a few years, but it's largely focused on discipline kind of versus motivation distinction.
Yeah. So I read it a few years ago, and I'm just reading it again. I just started it again.
Then maybe I need to read it again, because if you're reading it twice, it's good.
Yeah, well, we have this initiative where our department, our product and development department, is reading it as well.
Okay.
So I want to kind of refresh on it.
Yeah, my familiarity with it came from a previous role I had where we read it at an offsite.
Yeah.
And you may be realizing that maybe I didn't read the whole thing.
What's that?
I said you may be realizing that maybe I didn't read.
Yeah, it's worth going back. It's a good one.
That's awesome.
I mean, you have a different perspective because so much of it is told through the lens of their military experiences, which I don't have any context for, but I'm sure you have like your own set of experiences and understand, and it's probably different for you, right? Like reading those stories.
Yeah. I don't know what else in the book. I know, he does draw some analogies between combat and business.
Oh yeah. 100%. Like he tells a lot about like starting off about some stuff in Ramadi when they were there, and different, like he takes very specific like tours of duty, or I don't know what you call it, like they would go out to do like a mission or whatever, like on a certain day, and he like breaks it apart and then relates that to like leadership principles that can apply anywhere.
Oh, very cool. That's awesome, man. So you're reading, you just mentioned 2 books that are recent. So when you look back over everything that you've read, what do you think has shaped you the most professionally?
Yeah. So there's a book called How Will You Measure Your Life? And it's written by Clayton Christensen. He is incredible. So if you've ever like heard the theory of disruption, or people use that word all the time, like disruptive technology or disruption, he's the one that really coined it. And I mean, obviously like not the word itself, but the context of it, and a lot of like the theories around it. And he taught at Harvard Business School. He's since passed away, but I was lucky enough to have him as a professor. And his last lecture that he would give in that class was basically the content that he then put into this book called How Will You Measure Your Life? And it just helps you step back and like really think about what matters. And it's not about saying like work doesn't matter, only this matters. It's about how do you take all of it together and do it in a way that is meaningful to you and your development as a person, and how to impact those around you. And also focus on things that you care about holistically. And looking at what impact at the end of your life, how are you going to look back and think about the impact that you've made? And so how does that shape what you do now?
Yeah, I think if people, and me included, could consistently have a macro view of their lives, we would be better in family, in job, in just as people in total.
Oh, 100%. So perspective changes everything, and it's hard. It's super hard when you're in the moment, but so that's a huge one. Another one from a product standpoint, for anybody that's in product or wants to get into product, it's called The Right It, and it's phenomenal. Like,
what, did you say? I'm sorry. The Right Hit.
The Right It. IT.
Right. Okay.
So the concept is we focus so much about building things the right way and we skip over building the right thing. And so this talks about how you can figure out and make sure you're building the right thing before you then go build it the right way. So for anyone doing a startup, like that wants to start their own business or has a product idea or just works even as a product manager within a company, that one's really good too.
That's awesome, man. So that sounds similar. That sounds similar to kind of what we were talking about earlier about hiring for a job. Is that a similar?
Oh, totally. There's a lot of crossover, which actually, by the way, Clay Christensen that wrote How You Measure Your Life, he also is the one that came up with this jobs to be done theory and has articles and things that he's written on that, just by the way. But yeah, there's a ton of intersection there. Like I'll give you an example, and it's about it is about doing like prototypes, or he even calls them prototypes. So like prior to the prototype stage, that are inexpensive to figure out if what you're doing does the job to be done in a way that people will like pay you for it. So an example he gives is there's someone that has this great idea to have a robot that folds laundry and to put it into laundromats and like sell it to laundromat owners so that people wash their laundry and dry it, and then they could put it in this machine that would fold it for them, right? Well, instead of like developing an expensive machine to actually do it and see if anyone will buy it, he gets like a front of a dryer and like kind of a barrier stands behind it so they can't see him. They put their money into this machine and then he folds it. They don't know he's folding it. They think they close the door. They think it's a, robot. He folds it, puts it back, and then they take the clothes out. And so in a super inexpensive way, he's able to see how much are people going to use it? How much are they willing to pay? And, you do that for a week and you're going to know everything you need to know and you'll determine if you should build this product or not.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's also, I'm trying to picture what that must have looked like for people not to realize there was an actual person behind it folding it.
Yeah, no, it's great, but I had no idea, right? Like there's so many ways, and online now, there's so many ways you can do that. Like you can create a website. If you have this great idea for a product or a business, you can create a website and throw it all up there and not even have the product and just advertise it and see if you get interest. Or, there's a lot of easy ways to do it.
Kind of just throw it up and then monitor web traffic kind of thing.
Yeah. And run Google AdWords and you can see what kind of interest you get and see what your conversion cost is going to be and learn a ton before you have to spend real money.
That's awesome. So if you were going to, this is me trying to steal intellectual property. If you were going to start a business today, like from scratch, just out of whole cloth, how would you start that process? And I actually was trying to wind us down, but now like my mind is like, in light of what you said, how would you do this?
Yeah. So I like that you asked, how would you start that process and not like what business would you start? Because I think that is that question is really critical because people have ideas all the time. And they're like, oh, I'm going to make this like baby gadget or whatever. But why? Like, and what is the process that led you to that? And what is the process you use to validate it? So at different times I have different ideas of, crazy product ideas. I actually don't have one at the moment, but the process that I would take, which is the most important part is the process. I would go talk to as many people as I can and ask them questions like, hey, like let's say we want to be like a consumer product, right? Like what is like hard for you just like day to day? Like what's the most frustrating thing in your day? And you might be like, man, like I can't find like a good, like when I drink coffee, it spills everywhere. Or like I've got, like, I don't know, whatever. You might like start to talk about things that are frustrating. And I would start to pull threads and come up with, 20 things or 30 things of frustrations. And then start to look at that and say, okay, well that one like it's either going to be way too many people are doing it, something similar, or it's not feasible, or I'm not interested in it, and narrow it down. And then take that and go have more conversations and talk to as many people as possible. Because really, again, it comes back to users know what their pain is. And if you show them a solution, they're actually good at reacting to it to see if it solves the problem or not. So that's how I would start the process. I would start just asking questions.
Yeah, because I would be lying to you if I said, like, I've had ideas before and then I convince myself that they're stupid because they are. But my really good friend of mine is a mechanical engineer, and he rides street bikes. And about 2 years ago, he came over to the house. He gets off his bike, and he's he's committed, man. He rides when it's 25 degrees outside. He's like the only person in our small town who you'll see. If somebody's on a motorcycle in December, it's him.
Yeah.
Like, that's who he is. And he gets off the bike and he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, I should not have rode that over here. He's like, just cold. And he's in a leather jacket. He's got gloves on. And he's like, it's frigid. He comes in and it leads to a conversation about how cars, you know, literally the difference being interior and exterior, right? You get in a car, you got a heated seat and you got temperature controls and, you know, you're insulated, you're on a motorcycle, you're totally exposed to the elements. Leads to this whole 4-hour long conversation about him and I, because I used to be in sales, if we could come together and create a jacket for motorcycles that was fully temperature controlled. How would you power it? How would you control it? And would people buy it? Could you make it affordably with enough quality that people would actually consume it and want it? And then it's like, here's this product. And now if I'm on a motorcycle and it's 30 degrees outside, I don't care. My jacket is 72, right? Like literally like that. Well, we go on 2 weeks worth of research, like looking at how you would power it and how long it could sustain the temperature and all of these things. He runs it. He does a mock-up in a computer software that he has. I don't know that stuff. I'm not an engineer. And then simple Google search, that already exists.
Yeah. As soon as you said started this, I'm like, well, yeah, there's a bunch of heated jackets out there.
Yeah. Which after we thought about it, I was like, yeah, duh. Like we're not the first people in the world. It's like, you know, what if there was a heated jacket? But we thought we were.
There's a lot to be said for doing the Google search. However, sometimes like there's still innovation to be had, right? Like you can take a technology and apply it a different way or specialize it to a certain market.
Well, yeah, I think so. The ones we saw were just kind of generally like, hey, here's a heated jacket. I do think there's still something there where you could market them specifically for the niche of like people that ride motorcycles.
Yeah.
But anyways, man, that just makes my wheels spin. So I try to keep these to 40 minutes basically because I have a 40-minute attention span. But we went over. So before we went into recording, we were talking about podcasts. I believe that was before we started.
Yeah.
Can you just we'll close this way, man. I would love for you to just drop off your 3 favorite ones, and then we'll wrap it up. Does that work for you?
Yeah. So how I built this is the first one, and it's founding stories of companies. And every time I look at the list on the library and it says the name of the company, I'm like, oh, I don't recognize that. It's probably boring. I listen to it and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so good. And I really identify and admire the entrepreneurial spirit and journey and the pain that people go through to get things to be successful. So that's one, how I built this. Another one is Business Wars, which is kind of similar, but it talks more about like market dynamics between 2 competing companies. So like, for example, Mars and Hershey, like all the way back to the beginning of like candy and chocolate was one. And it was super interesting all the way to like, they have like the cereal wars of the different cereal makers and Adidas and Nike and a lot of different things there. And then the third one is Against All Odds. So the first 2 are business oriented. The third one is Against All Odds, and it's just different crazy stories of human survival, tragedies that in some cases have survival and loss, but just like the human spirit to survive and to help other people survive. And it takes like mini seasons of 5 or 6 episodes around a certain story. So those are 3 that I really enjoy.
Okay, so I lied. I said we were going to end it right there. Against All Odds, if somebody was going to start today, what story would you recommend starting with? And then we'll end. That'll be it.
There's a story of a rugby team from, I think, Chile that wrecked in the mountains of Peru or Argentina. I may be getting countries mixed up, but they wrecked like really high in the mountains, and they were stuck up there for months. Their plane crashed. This was in like the 70s. And that story is mind blowing. Like, I don't want to spoil any of it for you because it is crazy and inspiring and also tragic. And like, it's got all the feels, all the things.
Okay. So Against All Odds, rugby team, mountainside, South America.
Yep.
All right. Done. we're going to end it there. Johnny, it's been great, man. I could keep going, but we have to stop sometime.
Yeah, no one wants to listen to us keep going on and on.
I do. All right, Johnny, thanks, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Nxt In.